Hanging out in the back.
No.
Perfect. Thank you.
We're $15 million of this. This is $12 million a month.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the July 25th, 2024 Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting. If any member of the audience wishes to speak to an item on the agenda today, there are speaker request forms to the left of the dais. Please fill out the request with the agenda number of the item you wish to speak to and hand it to the secretary. At this time, we would also like to ask that if any member of the audience has a cell phone or other electronic device, that you either turn it off or turn the ringer to silent. If you need to take a call, please step out to the hallway so the meeting is not disrupted. The public hearing on item number 1, the approval of the July 3rd, 2024 Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting minutes, is hereby opened. All right, Karen made the motion to approve those minutes.
Second.
Vince seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2.
Good morning, Chair, Commission. Cassie Hayes from Community Development. Item 2 before you is variance request 24VA010. This is a request to reduce a side yard setback from 8 feet to 6 feet for an addition onto an existing single-family dwelling. This property is located on Brookside Drive. Current zoning of this property is low-density residential District 1, and future land use is low-density neighborhood. The property is accessed off of Brookside Drive, which is classified as a local street per the Infrastructure Design Criteria Manual. What the applicant is proposing to do before you, on the screen you will see the existing layout of her house. What she is proposing to do is add an 8 by 28 addition onto the back of her house. The reason she is proposing this is that she has recently had her mother move in with her full time. This will allow her to expand an existing bedroom and an existing living area to accommodate some necessary extra space to allow for her guest. The existing single-family dwelling was constructed in 1962 and does not meet the minimum east side setback requirement for the low-density residential 1 district. However, because it was built in the 60s, it is considered legal non-conforming with regard to those setbacks. But a legal non-conforming structure cannot be enlarged or added onto unless it conforms with the requirements of the zoning district or obtains a variance. So that's what she's here for today. As I stated, this is the existing interior layout of her house. You'll see on this that yellow portion outlined up top. That is what she is proposing to add. So it's just an extra 224 square feet extending out that bedroom and that family area to give her a little bit of extra space for that in-home care. So staff has gone through this variance. This is currently the south side elevation, side elevations, and this is the elevation showing her addition. This is currently the front of her house from the street. This is the front looking at where her addition will be constructed, so there is some privacy fencing up from the front yard. And this is the backyard looking at where her addition will be constructed. And the fence line and building line that will be extended out. This extension will just extend out that existing encroachment that is legal non-conforming. And this is showing the distance between where she'll be constructing her addition and the neighboring property. There is currently about 50 feet of separation between the two. So staff is recommending approval based on the criteria that the existing single-family dwelling was constructed in 1962, so it is considered legal non-conforming, and the location of the dwelling does create a special circumstance that does not generally apply in the district, and this would be a continuation of that existing encroachment. Number 2, that the applicant is proposing to construct the addition in order to provide in-home care for her mother, and meeting an ADA need is an acceptable criterion to grant a variance. And finally, the proposed addition will extend an existing building an additional 8 feet along the east property line. And given the current separation between the existing dwelling and the neighboring dwelling, reducing that side yard setback does not appear to be injurious to the neighborhood or detrimental to adjacent properties. I will stand for questions, and the applicant is also in the audience if you have any specific questions.
Thank you. Vicky?
Usually when we would have a request such as this, you would get a recommendation from staff to deny because reasonable use of the property exists. And we hold pretty firm to that. However, for several years, the Zoning Board of Adjustment has taken into consideration when ADA design is needed. And we have across the board supported those. Because this is being proposed for in-home care to meet that accessibility need, we have come on board and we are bringing forward a recommendation to approve.
Thanks, Vicky. Any questions from the commission? Comments? Karen?
I'd like to make a motion that, to approve this based on the fact that there's a minimal adjustment to this request, and it's a reasonable use of the land. So I would say this is under special circumstances.
Second.
All right. Karen made that motion as stated. Vince seconded it. Any discussion from the commission on the motion to grant the variance? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. That's our last item on Zoning Board of Adjustment. I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Vince made the motion and Karen seconded it. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye. Aye. That takes us now to the Rapid City Planning Commission meeting for July 25th, 2024. Again, if anyone wishes to speak to an item on the Planning Commission agenda, please grab a speaker request form from the staff and fill it out, noting the item you wish to speak to. And if you still haven't silenced your cell phone or turned it off, please do so now. Items 1 through 4 have been placed on the consent calendar today and may be approved as a group. Action will be taken on all consent items in accordance with staff's recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent calendar by any planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration at this time. The findings of this planning commission are recommendations to the city council. The city council will make the final decision with the exception of the following item. Item 4, 24 PD 014. The Rapid City Planning Commission's action on this item is final unless any party appeals that decision to the Rapid City Council. All appeals must be submitted in writing to the Department of Community Development by close of business on the 7th full calendar day following action by the Planning Commission. Are there any items 1 through 4 that staff would like removed for separate consideration?
No, thank you.
Any items 1 through 4 that any planning commissioner would like removed for separate consideration? Okay. Haven has asked item 2 to be pulled. And then are there any items 1, 3, or 4 that any audience member would like removed for separate consideration at this time? The chair would then entertain a motion to approve items 1, 3, and 4 in accordance with the staff's recommendation.
Motion to approve items 1,
3.
3, and 4 in accordance with the staff's recommendations.
All right. All right. Vince made the motion to approve those 3 items, and Brooke seconded that motion in accordance with staff's recommendations. Any discussion on the motion to approve? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2. Haven, maybe you want to, can you put a request up? Haven?
Thank you.
I got to get your mic up. Can you request? There you go.
Thank you. This particular development was up before us some time ago. It seemed like it was about a year ago. And I guess I understand that from the city standpoint, it meets the requirements. I guess I wanted to pull us out for separate consideration just to comment on the development itself. I think there were some comments the last time we saw this that didn't like several things about the development, and I guess I would reiterate that. I think this is a poor development for several reasons. The main reason is that it's quite a distance outside of the populated area of East Rapid, and it doesn't seem to fit this sort of development when you've got that additional travel expense. Just commenting on the layout, it just seems like it's not a very imaginative layout. I guess I just pull this to make my comments that I don't think this sort of development is positive for the area. And I know in many places they wouldn't allow this sort of a development to take place that as far out of the city as this is. Thank you.
Vicky?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Haven, you make some comments that were discussed when we did first learn of this proposed project. The important thing to remember in this case is this property is located outside the city limits. And at the time that they were proposing to subdivide, they went before the County Board of Commission to determine if this density was appropriate. The County Board of Commission determined that it was. So once that rezone was put in place, that took the density and location outside the authority of the city. Now that the property owner is proposing to subdivide, we're responsible to ensure that the infrastructure meets those design standards set forth by the Infrastructure Design Criteria Manual. And the county, Pennington County, has signed off on the lot layout and lot size specific to the zoning. So that's why the item is before you today.
Haven?
And I guess I did make the comment that I do understand that it meets the requirements of the city. Thank you.
All right, any other questions, comment on item number 2? Karen?
I'll make a motion to approve item number 2 with the stipulations that are in the project report.
All right, Karen made the motion to approve item number 2 with the stipulations as listed, and Brooke seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion to approve? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5.
Good morning again. Item number 5 before you is a final plan development, 24 PD 015. This is a final plan development to allow an apartment complex. The location that you're looking at is northeast of the intersection of East Anamosa Street and Camden Drive. Currently, this property is dual zoned, the southern portion of it being office commercial and the northern portion of it being general commercial district. Future land use of the entire property is mixed use commercial. And access to this property is off of both Camden Drive and Utica Street. Currently, this property that this project will be on is consisting of 5 separate parcels. Ultimately, the applicant is proposing to consolidate all 5 of these lots into one lot. They are in the first phases of that, but ultimately, before a building permit is submitted, they do plan on consolidating all 5 of these so that this project is housed entirely on one property, retaining that dual zoning. What they are proposing to do here, this is the final plan development that tags along from the initial plan development that was approved in 2023. They are proposing to build 6 apartment buildings and a solar panel field. The 6 apartment buildings that they are proposing will total approximately 135 square feet of building footprint and will provide 252 dwelling units. All 6 of these apartment buildings will be 3 stories in height. The intent here is to provide an apartment complex that is for affordable housing that will be restricted to 60% of the area median income or below. They will be a variety of 1, 2, 3, and 4 bedroom units. There will also be 1 building that will be reserved for residents that are 62 years of age and older and will offer additional accessibility improvements. This is kind of a rendering of what those apartment buildings will look like. They are also proposing a solar panel field that will be constructed to provide private power to the apartment complex. This is a rendering that gives you an idea of what the entire scope of the project will look like. You can see the solar panel field up there in the northeast corner, and then the layout of the 6 apartment buildings and also their access. As I mentioned, access to this is off of Camden Drive, which is already an improved street. You can see it in this drawing, that southern street. Utica Street is going to be improved as part of this development. The Public Works is currently reviewing development engineering plans for the required improvements along Utica Street. Utica Street, you can see in this drawing, runs along that northwest corner, ultimately going into a cul-de-sac. They are also proposing a 6-foot tall chain link fence with barbed wire around the solar panel field to prohibit access, unauthorized access. This is a very small drawing of the interior floor plan of the apartment buildings. So kind of showing the typical mixture of 1, 2, 3, and 4 bedroom units. They are providing open space as required on this property as well. They are providing a playground area, some community patio spaces. There is a fair amount of grassed area around the apartments that could be used for outdoor activities and recreation. There will also be a fitness room located within one of these apartment buildings. The location of that would be determined at the time of building permit when final designs are done. They were also proposing to do an outdoor basketball court, pickleball court, and dog park for this development as well. Unfortunately, those had to be removed at the moment. There is an existing Western Area Power Administration of WAPA easement. There are some existing large overhead power lines that run along the western side of this property. Those amenities were going to be located below those power lines, and WAPA is requiring that they remove those per their easement. So those, they are going to try to move to another area if design allows, but they are still meeting open space requirements even if those amenities can't be brought back in. They are requesting an exception with this, one exception to waive the requirement that a minimum of 50% of the required landscaping be located in the parking lot or within 20 feet of the parking lot. The reason that they are requesting that exception is due to the large size of the lot where the solar panel fields are located. As you can see on this drawing, that lot where those solar panels are going to be, it's approximately 16.5 acres in size. And in order to provide the required number of landscaping points, they are going to need to retain the landscaping on that entire property. It is going to remain grass covered, which does count for landscaping points. But they do have to include that, and just because of its sheer size, having at least 50% of that within the required proximity to the parking lot is just unattainable. Also, that WAPA easement prevents any sort of landscaping within that easement, so trees, shrubs, the only thing that can be within that easement is anything grass related. Nothing can impede or hinder entrance to that easement or anything that could potentially impact those power lines. So that is the reason for their exception request. Staff does see that that is an acceptable reason to grant the request, so we are recommending approval of that exception. And in terms of the WAPA easement, we do have a stipulation in there as well that prior to the submittal of a building permit, WAPA needs to approve the final design and construction plans within that easement and adjacent to that easement to ensure that their interests are protected, but also that the development can move forward. This is kind of a rendering of what the not even a rendering, an actual photo of what the solar panel fields will look like. This is obviously without the panels on them, showing the mounting. This is showing the solar panel fields. This is currently what the property looks like. You can see those existing large transmission overhead power lines in the background there. This is off Camden. Again, looking down Camden towards East Anamosa. And this is looking up Camden Street to it'd be the east on Camden. This is looking at the property from the Utica side of it. Again, there's those large transmission lines where that easement exists. And this is looking at what Utica Street currently looks like today. Currently, it is mostly gravel, but again, they are improving that as part of this development. And this is looking at Utica Street towards East Anamosa. So ultimately, staff is recommending approval of this final plan development with the stipulations noted in the staff report. I will stand for any questions. There are also representatives in the audience if you have any specific questions.
Thank you. Kelly?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just have one comment and question. The comment relates to the design. I think a lot of thought looked like it went into the design, and I'm pleased to see that it's, not cookie cutter plain Jane. It's got some character, some nice finishes, and the green and common spaces are always welcome. The question is in relation to that solar field. I'm no expert on solar. It's not really common here. So how is that power transmitted over? Are there going to be transformers, infrastructure? Is it secured? Is it sight lines go? Can anybody just walk us through what it's going to look and feel like to get that power over to that complex?
I'm going to defer to the representatives. I am not a solar panel expert either.
Thank you.
Once you're up at the microphone, please just identify yourself and your relationship to the project.
Molly Brown, GenPro Energy Solutions. We're designing the solar portion of the project. So in regard to the solar portion, yeah, there's going to be extra transformers and switchgear that are going to go into place. What happens is Black Hills Energy substation is literally across the street from this entire lot, and there's going to be one switchgear that's going to feed both the facility loads and the solar farm. So there'll be a single switchgear for the campus. That's where everything's going to be metered. And then the solar is what's considered behind the meter, which means that it's just directly serving the facilities first, and then any excess generation would be put back onto Black Hills Energy's distribution lines. They are on board with the project. We're working with them to get all of those specifications ironed out. There will be fencing around the solar farm per code. That's a NEC code thing that we have to do, so people will not have access to that. There'll be a locked gate at all times on that.
Okay. And you mentioned that substation's currently there or is being built?
It's currently there.
Okay. And you guys are GenPro?
Yes,
You guys are local, correct?
correct, Piedmont.
Awesome. Thank you.
Haven?
Thank you. I just had a couple of questions. I assume that there's no access on east-north, and the access to east-north is probably limited to East Anamosa and Camden, I guess.
Yes, let me get back to the aerial picture here. Yep, so here you can see it. So Camden Drive, here on its eastern terminus connects with East North Street, and then East Anamosa connects with East North Street down here. But those are the two direct tie-ins to East North Street.
And the north boundary, is that, I'm not quite familiar with that, is that an active railroad line?
Yes, on that northern portion. Yep, right through here. This is an active railway.
And maybe Vicki can refresh my recollection, but this was before us previously on a preliminary plan, or why did we look at this several months ago?
Vicki?
So Planning Commission has previously approved an initial plan development. with this layout, and I think Cassie did a good job explaining that really the only deviation from that is that the outdoor play activity in the WAPA easement had to be removed. Based on the direction that Planning Commission previously gave them, they then came forward with final plans.
I wanted to ask about that, the western area power lines, and the details of that easement. Those things go over Rushmore Crossing, right?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
you are correct that we have them throughout various areas of the community. This is really a new position that WAPA has taken. And to the extent that they now want to be routed everything that's within close proximity to their line. And at one time, they did allow parking within the easement, access points within the easement, and they're changing their business model, and that's no longer going to be allowed.
How? Yeah, I'm
When it
trying to
did-
keep it germane to this topic, but if they're worried about a play area at an apartment complex, what's the deal with the biggest shopping center that we have in Rapid City?
Mr. Chair, I believe that back when Rushmore Crossing was coming in, there was probably those making comments to these types of projects that thought that would be in line with their needs to maintain and service their facility. We're now dealing with new individuals, and there's a different position.
Okay.
And
just
I'm trying to be generic too.
That's fair. I just didn't like to see the idea that, I mean, this is a enormous apartment complex with not super access to outdoor recreation space. We asked for outdoor recreation space. They gave it to us, and now we might have to say goodbye to it. I'm a little disappointed in that. The other question I had is that portion along the railway. I just couldn't tell from the site plan. Do we have a fence along there? I know the whole property, can't fence the whole thing, but I just have some concern, and it came up during zoning, that people will try to cut across to Rushmore Crossing.
Sure. I didn't see a fence on their site plan, but I'll let the representative speak too.
Sure. Sir?
Hi there, Ryan Tobin. I'm with Elmington Affordable. We have, to the north of the yellow line there, the kind of half-moon shaped property is not part of our ownership. And then the solar panels will have a fence around them, which will create a pretty big barrier for most of the rail tracks that we would control. So there won't be a direct cut through necessarily. Utica, we've actually shortened it. It used to run all the way down to the end. So the turnabout and the access point won't go all the way down to that end. So I think it would be a challenge to necessarily shortcut through there with our fence and what we'll have out there, but we don't have a fence along the rail that we would do otherwise.
Okay. Thank you. Brooke?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a comment. I feel like this project has had a long road. I think it went to council without a recommendation potentially. It meets a lot of needs in our community, the affordable housing piece. I particularly like the senior housing element. So I just wanted to make a few comments and say I will be voting for it. Thank you.
Vince?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I agree with both of you. And yes, I still have a concern about the outdoor playgrounds because that was one of our concerns to begin with. And we understand WAPA. I understand that WAPA has changed the direction of it. But I do appreciate you pointing out that your solar field is going to have the fence around it that will even prevent less access to those tracks from this complex. So I do appreciate the work that you're putting into it. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments on this one?
No, but I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay. Vince, with the stipulations as listed?
With the stipulations as listed.
All right. Is there a second to that motion? Brooke? Any discussion on the motion to approve? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6.
All right, moving on. Item number 6 is a conditional use permit request, 24 UR 012. This is a request to allow an oversized garage. This is on property located at 4648 Duckhorn Street, located in the low-density residential 2 district. Future land use is urban neighborhood. And access to this property, as I mentioned, is off of Duckhorn Street. It does also border East Minnesota Street on the northern side. This property is currently consisting of 0.68 acres and currently contains a single-family dwelling with a 1,005 square foot attached garage and a 240 square foot detached shed. What the applicant here is proposing to do is to construct a 24-foot by 30-foot, so 720 square foot detached garage. You can see it on the east side of his property on this drawing. According to the zoning ordinance, the maximum cumulative allowable size of private garages and storage is 1,500 square feet, or 30% of the size of the dwelling unit. So with the existing attached garage, the existing shed, and his new proposed garage, he is exceeding that 1,500 square feet by about 465 square feet. So thus the reasoning for the conditional use permit request. The applicant has stated that the garage is not intended to be used for commercial purposes or as a second residence. He has indicated that this garage will be used for storage and for personal projects like woodworking. He has mentioned and indicated that this structure will not be used for parking vehicles, so he is not requesting any additional access off of East Minnesota Street. Staff did note that, as you can see on these elevations, it does have a garage door on it, so staff was concerned that access would be requested at a future date or just taken at a future date from East Minnesota Street. So it is in the infrastructure design criteria manual that not more than one access approach will be allowed to a single residence, and a second access approach will not be permitted on an arterial street. East Minnesota Street is a minor arterial street, so access would not be permitted off of East Minnesota Street. Again, the applicant is not requesting it at this time, but should be known that that will not be granted. The applicant has also indicated that he will be landscaping the portion of the property where this new garage will be built, and that does include planting of trees along the East Minnesota border to screen the garage and also to prohibit some of that access, that desire to take access. That is included as one of the conditions of approval, that they do plant those trees in such a way that it provides screening but also prohibits vehicular access. Detached garages are not common within this subdivision. However, most of the properties are limited by either existing location of structures or size of the lot. So this is one where he has the available space. Here is the area that you can see where he is proposing to construct this garage. It is currently an undeveloped portion of his property. As you can see, just the natural features. It is not currently landscaped. Like I said, he is proposing to do that. This is a little bit bigger picture. This is looking at the location from the other side of East Minnesota Street. This is looking at his house. So as you can see, the location of the garage will be well recessed behind his house. So from the Duckhorn Street side of things, this viewpoint, you will not see the garage. You will just see it from the East Minnesota side. The applicant has indicated that it will be constructed with the same building materials as the residence, matching in color and those things as is required with an oversized garage. This is looking east, down East Minnesota Street. And this would be looking west. You can see Duckhorn Street right here. This is Duckhorn. And that's looking up Duckhorn Street as well. So staff is ultimately recommending approval of this conditional use permit with the stipulations included. As I mentioned, that does include the stipulation that trees be planted to screen it and also prohibit vehicular access. I'll stand for any questions.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Vicki?
So staff did struggle with this one. It's a beautiful property. The garage is well designed. The issue is that the applicant has noted that he is not proposing to park vehicles in it. And could you go to the elevation of the
Yeah.
garage, please? But there's a 2-stall garage door on the garage. About 7 years ago, we had a similar proposal before you, and the applicant had the same double-car garage. It was a detached garage from the home. They also indicated that they would not be using it on the corner lot because they had the other access. And the lot that the garage was being built on in that time was a collector street, not an arterial. And they held true to that. But as soon as that property sold, the new owner started jumping the curb and driving into those garage doors. I don't know if we've had a conversation with the applicant to see if you're not parking cars in the garage, why are the doors being provided? Is that something that they only open up if they need it for air to do woodworking? Could it be on the south elevation so that it opens up to the inside of the yard and isn't accessible from Minnesota Street? Our concern being that this will be extremely difficult for us to police long-term, and while this owner may not park vehicles there, just providing this along Minnesota Street, a future owner could be jumping the curb and parking in this garage.
Thank you. Can you show the overall map again of how this sits on the lot?
Maybe go to the aerial so they can see the streets.
And
It would sit back here.
in the elevation, the garage door would face the house, if I'm reading it right.
Cassie, is the applicant in the audience?
No. According to the way that they have this labeled, and
Maybe it's
front
fine.
elevation, my take on it, front elevation would be that's the side that's facing the house. Rear elevation would be facing the rear of the property.
Gotcha. Okay. So as we can see, I'll go to Karen. I'm mumbling. Karen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is it proper for us to require that the garage doors be on one side or the other? Can we do that?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Vicky.
You could approve the size of the garage with the elimination of the garage doors, or indicate that they need to open to the, would it be south?
The south, yeah.
To the south, which would be internal to the backyard.
Okay. I can understand why they want the pretty side, their view, so that's why the front would be next to their house. But I concur with what you said about future people purchasing, because that happens a lot. Different things like that does happen a lot. And I would be more willing to agree to have the garage doors somewhere else. It doesn't have to be facing them. If they want to face it somewhere else. Because I understand from reading the staff report that he was going to do woodworking and that kind of thing, and that was used to have more air, more light. And so I understand having a garage door, but I just think that the garage door needs to be on a different spot. So that's that. So whoever makes a motion, I think that would be nice if we added that. But as long as we can do it, that's what I wanted to know. Thanks.
Kelly?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I was hoping they'd be here. I just had a few questions. A question that's rhetorical because they're not here, but are they going to enclose that with a fence? Obviously, down the road, if this sells and someone wanted to access that from East Minnesota and an approach and all that, that would trigger a review and a permit and all that. What would prevent a future owner from approaching through their yard on Duckhorn and go all the way around back to that garage? Is that allowable on your own property within your boundaries? That's not, that would trigger some code enforcement, I'm assuming.
Go back out to the aerial again. I don't think they could physically access it from Duckhorn traveling through the property. If they could come in with an elongated driveway that would allow them access from Duckhorn. And that would meet the design criteria for the city. And we do have some that have that design.
Go all the way around back.
Right. On corner lots, when you're putting that garage and it aligns with another street and you put garage doors on it, it's opening up the opportunity for someone to
Yeah.
either jump the curb, which is what happened on the previous one. I happen to live in that area and walk by it almost every night and hear from the neighbors, why is the city allowing this? And then you have just a dirt path that they've created jumping the curb. These are beautiful homes in this area. I'd assume that even a future owner would probably approach the city to try to get a curb cut, but
Yeah, and that was with no fence enclosing it, it's kind of a temptation. There's a, freestanding building, middle of a field, why not, down the road? So that was a question. Also in the project report, on page 10, it had the maximum height as 9.5 feet. Is that just the sidewall height, or is that a typo? I mean, it looks like full-size ridge and, gable end and all that good stuff. It was on
I
page.
think the heights are midpoint of the roof, right? Would that still be pretty short for midpoint?
Showed a maximum and then a proposed. Proposed was 9.5 feet, so I just wasn't sure. It's in the report.
Yeah, he wouldn't be able to go over 15 feet tall, but that would have been from scaling this out, and their scale could be off on here.
Oh, it's page 4.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Vicky?
it appears that they're dimensioning the height of the wall, which is the 9 feet, and then where the roof line intersects with the exterior wall, they're not including the height of that midpoint of the roof line. So it does appear that they're still going to meet the 15-foot max, but it's going to have 9-foot clearance inside. Minimum 9-foot clearance.
Good catch, Kelly.
Thank you.
All right, Vince.
There's just so many questions still unanswered here for me. So, if somebody wants to design that and put those in, I might consider it. But at this point, I need to be assured that what we talked about regarding access to this garage is accessible to the owner, and that it doesn't violate the go-around rule, if you will. I mean, as far as that goes, having the garage doors facing the house, there would be another added feature if his garage had an exit door as well, so that he can exit it from his internal property there. So there's still unanswered questions here that I need answers to. So,
Mr. Chair?
Vicky?
So your options today are to approve it as presented, approve it with a revised stipulation that the garage doors open to along the south elevation, or continue this item to allow the applicant to review what the discussion is today and to ensure concurrence that we're changing the design that aligns with his needs as well.
Thanks, Vicky. Personally, I'd be on the side of continuance. Moving the garage door opening, especially a double wide one, around a structure, if you put it on the short side, I don't know if that works with whatever garage package they have from Builders First Source. I think we probably need some input from the applicant. Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I concur with that comment. But I think my question before I make a motion is if the front of the elevation is facing the house and the rear would be more up a hill, isn't there kind of a slope going up that hill? So that's my question, I guess, internally is like, maybe that's not such a bad idea to have it on that side, but either way, as long as it's not facing East Minnesota Street, that, I don't want the garage door to face Minnesota Street. So, after saying that, I'm going to make a motion to continue this for 2 weeks. Is that enough time?
August 8th.
August 8th, thank you.
I'll second it.
All right, Karen made the motion to continue to August 8th, and Vince seconded that motion. Any further discussion on this or discussion on the motion to continue? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. That's the end of the regular agenda today. Anything to add from staff, Vicki?
No, I think we're looking good.
All right. Anything from the commission?
No.
Look for a motion to adjourn then.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, Vince made the motion. Brooke seconded that motion. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye.